Greetings. Thank you for joining us to view the 90-minute video recording of the recent Pueblo Economic Outlook Forum that also introduced the monthly economic dashboard to the entire community. I am Dennis Flores, Pueblo City Council member, and joining me today is Abel Chavez, a retired CenturyLink director who helped me organize the forum. Welcome, Abel.
Thank you.
Pueblo's Economic Outlook Forum, a collaborative effort by the City of Pueblo, Pueblo County government, and Pueblo Economic Development Corporation, known as PEDCO, and our regional economist, Dr. Tatiana Bailey, seeks to provide an update highlighting economic activity and what it means for area residents, businesses, industry, and its local economy. In addition, a review of Pueblo County's key economic metric and economic indicators from its last monthly dashboard will be shared to show how the region is doing, identify areas where we need improvement, and implement actionable efforts to reach our desired outcomes. The key areas where monthly economic data is being compiled includes job openings, other labor market information, educational attainment, quality of life, tourism, population growth, real estate activity sales, and use tax collections, and others. While no single indicator can provide a complete picture of the economy, this collective data can show the economic health and welfare of the region. This information is already paying dividends in the Pueblo area. PEDCO, which is our economic driver in our community, is using this data as part of their recruitment efforts. Our relationships have been strengthened with developers, with Pueblo County, with Pueblo West, and a transition of the need to a workforce development strategy. The Pueblo Economic Outlook provides this data to help employers, business leaders, government officials, educational and workforce partners, and others to make more informed decisions and the greater goal of assisting in economic development efforts. You can find this video, the most recent dashboard with the December 2022 economic data and slide presentation on the City Pueblo website under your Government tab. If you are interested in further supporting our ongoing efforts to improve Pueblo's economic vitality and quality of life through contributions and sponsorships of either the dashboard or the Economic Outlook forums, please contact me by email at dennis.flores8118@gmail.com. Before we play the video, I want Abel Chavez to briefly mention the next phase of our efforts, and that is to tackle the current workforce shortage we are experiencing in Pueblo County. And thank you. Here's Abel.
Thank you, Dennis. When you look at the December 2022 economic dashboard, the latest data reveals that in Pueblo County, the number of current job openings total 4,214, and the number of unemployed individuals amount to about 4,141. And also, if you look at the dashboard, the top titles for these job openings fall into several categories, including healthcare, advanced manufacturing, retail sales, customer service, information technology, and cybersecurity. However, we're going to concentrate on those job openings that yield a livable wage. We've already begun our community planning to address these job skills, and we also are beginning our efforts to fill the job openings. We also will bring together our workforce and economic development partners in government, education, business, industry, and others to help develop an action plan. The action plan will focus on how to actively support employers and industry in finding, attracting, and retaining the talent they need, align education and workforce resources more closely with the business community and the local talent pool, support education and workforce institutions in strengthening the locally grown talent pipeline, and collectively address structural issues that serve as barriers to securing a talent pipeline. There's more to come. Stay tuned. Dennis?
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Our featured speaker is on her way from Colorado Springs. She tells me she's about 10 minutes out, but she's not going to be introduced until probably another 30 minutes. But thank you for coming this morning. I guess we could be in Buffalo and be looking at 5 feet of snow, but we measure, I guess, our snow in inches. So thank you for showing up. I got to tell you that the people that put this together were very overwhelmed about how the community came together to come to this economic forum. One of the things that we discovered that when we sent the Save the Date card out, we got 151 reservations within a matter of days. And I just think it's a testament to the amount of need there is in this community to get current information. All of you make very, very hard decisions, and sometimes it's hard to do without information. We're hoping that this is the start of something very revolutionary in Pueblo, where you'll be getting real-time data on a monthly basis. Those businesses that want to expand, looking at the workforce, looking at institutions that train and educate our workforce, and the gaps that are created within the community of people that are not trained properly for the jobs that are available. So thank you again for coming this morning. Before I start, I want to introduce a gentleman that has really been the workhorse. We came together. I've known Abel my whole life practically, but he's been the workhorse in putting a lot of this together. And sometimes the most important asset, people that are in government, are community leaders. And I want Abel to stand up. Abel Chavez, if you don't know him, he's retired. Abel was a 43-year veteran of the telecommunications. He worked for CenturyLink, Quest, US West, and he serves in a couple of positions in higher education on advisory boards here at PCC and in Boulder at CU. So Abel, thank you so much for your hard work. There's so many things that we, individuals and organizations that we need to thank this morning. So bear with me. Today we're going to introduce a different approach to economics. What we're going to do is that we're going to be establishing not only a workforce development kind of template, but also a monthly dashboard. But we have 3 tenets that we've created, and that is that the dashboard, along with the narrative, will be forward-looking, it will be collaborative, it'll be driven by data, and it's actionable. People will be able to use it to make decisions. We're very fortunate today. We have a great cross-section of leaders from government, from business, from nonprofits, from civic organizations and education. And we have representation from Pueblo County. We have individuals here from Colorado Springs and Denver and Boulder, and we welcome you and thank you for being here. A special shout out to leaders from higher education who are here today. I know we have representatives from Colorado State University Pueblo, Pueblo Community College, UCCS, CU Boulder, and the CU system. Today's Economic Outlook will have presenters from the City of Pueblo, Mayor Gratishar, Pueblo County, Chairman of the County Commissioners, Garrison Ortiz. We'll have a few words from President Patty Erjavik with Pueblo Community College, and then we'll have a representative from Pueblo Economic Development Corporation, known as PETCO. Our featured speaker today is Dr. Tatiana Bailey, regional economist, and she is the founder of Data-Driven Economic Strategies. And that is the entity that the city has entered into a contract with over the next 2 years to produce this monthly economic dashboard. It is important today to thank the sponsors making today's forum possible. And there was a lot of people involved, and these are the people that helped us pay for the food. We're going to have a permanent video of this conference that will be available to anyone in the community. I want to have a special thanks for the Pueblo City Council. We were able to get the past City Council that included Bob Schilling, Mark Aliff, Solange Macaulay Bachicha, and Ed Brown. They were the City Council at that time in 2021, in which we included in our budget the amount of the cost of producing this dashboard for the community. So I wanted to thank them. I want to thank the current City Council because they've extended the funds for our next year in 2023. And I know we have representatives here from City Council. I want to introduce them. We have President Heather Graham. We have Regina Mastry, Lori Winter, Larry Atencio, Vicente Martinez Ortega, Sarah Martinez, and of course myself. I also want to thank the county commissioners, especially Commissioner Chair Garrison Ortiz for being here. But I did want to thank Epi Grego and Chris Wiseman for helping us in putting this forum together. And of course, needless to say, I want to thank Dr. Patty Erjavik for your welcome on your campus and also donating the use of this facility. And it's just a fantastic way to make a presentation here, and thank your staff for all of the nice Christmas trees. We also have InBank as one of our sponsors, and I want to welcome Rebecca Diaz. She's the Vice President of Retail and Production, and also Andy Trainer, who's actually getting an award today and could not be here, but I wanted to thank them for their sponsorship. Ashley Valdez, the Area Manager for Community and Local Government Affairs with Xcel Energy. She's in the audience, and I thank her for being here and also sponsoring this function. And of course, Black Hills Energy, who is always an entity that's out front and helping us in any way they can. And I'd like to welcome Kelly Ashcraft, Vice President of Operations of Colorado Electric and Gas Operations, and Julie Rodriguez, Program Manager for Community Affairs. Thank you again for being here. We also have Colorado Workforce Development Council, Lisa Ann McNew, she is the board chair, and Diana Escabel, who is the Workforce Director for Pueblo and Upper Arkansas area. And of course, Jeff Shaw and Jeff Shaw, the President and CEO of Petco, and the board president, Dominic Galena. Thank you guys for being here. There's so many people to thank here that put all this together. It is a professional endeavor, and it couldn't have been done without these people. I want to personally thank each one of them. Haley Sue Robinson with the City of Pueblo. She is the Public Information Officer. I want to thank Aaron Herger Tafoya, Pueblo Community College Marketing and Communication Director. Charles Hurley, PCC Graphic Designer. Need I say more? And the communication, he is the graphic designer for marketing and communication department. Amy Matthews, who is a media specialist here at PCC. Shannon Baker with Petco, who basically coordinated all the RSVPs. She is the mission coordinator and membership planning and social media director with Petco, and thank you for being here. Adam Yehernick, who is the PIO officer, public information officer with Pueblo County. Jill Young, who I worked with in putting the whole room together and the food, and she is the sales manager here at Pueblo Community College. And last but not least, Jerry Carter, who is the catering director with Aladdin Food. thank you all. It wouldn't have been possible without all of you. I wanted to thank you for that. Before I introduce our first speaker, I did want to talk a little bit about the background and the history of how this all came to be. The City Council has a retreat every February after the first of the year. And I grew up, I worked for a company called Steel City Agencies for 42 years. We later sold to a company called Hub. But we were very entrenched in using data to make decisions. And if you've ever seen sometimes a city council meeting, and not just ours, but everywhere, in not just city councils, but any kind of government, you will see that there might be one person or a group of people that will be so vocal and in your face that sometimes public policy is made without regard to having the foundational information to be making decisions. And I felt strongly in February of 2021 that we needed to have more information. And I was thinking very narrowly about just city council at that time. And as we evolved with this idea, we basically said this would be a great tool for our business community, for the education community, civic nonprofit organizations that they could really use real-time data. So it kind of evolved and it grew to a much bigger endeavor. And so I during that year, I convinced City Council that we were not going to get this done by getting the business community to support it. So in order to jumpstart this idea, the City of Pueblo has agreed to fund this for 2 years. But I am in a position where I want to hand the baton on to the community. And there's 4 other communities in Colorado that do this. That's Fort Collins, Boulder, Grand Junction, and then El Paso County. So we are now at the point where even though the first dashboard came out in April 30th, this is really, in my mind, an introduction of this concept as a beginning and as a send-off to this. And that's how I'm looking at this particular forum today. So, we have challenges in Pueblo, but we also have a lot of good news in our dashboards. We're probably one of the best cities in pricing of a median price of a home. Denver's almost double what it is here. And in Colorado Springs, it's much more expensive, and we're talking about the same kind of house. We should utilize that valuable information for the real estate people in our community. With the help of Abel, he had some connections at UCCS in Colorado Springs, and he introduced me to Dr. Tatiana Bailey, and she's been amazing. She's well-recognized economist in Colorado Springs. She's on Fox News all the time, and she does a lot of work for the city government there in Colorado Springs and El Paso County. Why is this information important? What does it mean? How can it be used in Pueblo? I think Dr. Bailey will get into that as soon as she arrives. We really feel that we have probably our biggest problem in Pueblo is a skills gap. If you go back and look at April had indicated that we had 5,200 jobs in Pueblo, and there was about 4,500 people unemployed at that time. And it's a graphic that's really mind-boggling, because you think, all right, we have the jobs, but we don't have the people trained in the right jobs. So it's time that we start looking at that information and getting, institutions that are training our people to do that. We have a workforce, so companies that are coming in, depending on the kind of industry that they're in, we can set up training programs specifically for them. I think I've said enough, and I think that. Before I move on, as I mentioned, I want to pass this on to the business community and the community at large, and we'll be spending most of next year getting sponsors to pick up the cost in the third year. And I'd like to invite Rebecca Diaz with InBank just to say a few words. She and InBank, through Andy Trainer, have agreed to be the first sponsor going forward. And Shannon, could you, Rebecca, I said Shannon, Rebecca, can you come up?
Thank you so much, Dennis. As he said, my name is Rebecca Diaz. I am with InBank, Vice President and Retail Sales Coordinator. InBank is so excited to be here discussing economic growth opportunities in our community. And speaking of growth, this past year has been a roller coaster of exciting expansion and growth opportunities within our organization. Legacy Bank, now InBank, has grown from 9 locations in southern Colorado to 19 locations across Colorado and in northern New Mexico, so quite the expansion. So now, of course, you can find us in more places, but most importantly, you're still going to be able to find a lot of the same faces, which is so key. And I'm going to take a brief moment to thoroughly embarrass my coworkers. So when I say your name, I'm going to need you to raise your hand, give a little wave so people know you're here. First, we have Chad Fife. He is a Senior Vice President and Pueblo Regional President. There he is. Vanessa Van Egmond, she is an Assistant Vice President and Branch Manager of our Pueblo West location. Mark Dunsmore, Senior Vice President and Commercial Lender. Mark Mignoni, Senior Vice President, Commercial Lender. You can find him at our Riverwalk location downtown. We have Sunny Ariano, Assistant Vice President and Portfolio Manager. And then we have the lovely Lori Ariano. She is our creative marketing guru. And it's not written on her business card, but she's also a saint because she puts up with all of our nonsense. So we thank you so much. Last but certainly not least, we have Andrew Trainer. He leads our community banking division in Southern Colorado and New Mexico. He does send his regrets that he's not able to attend this morning. Last night he attended an awards function where our CEO, Ed Francis, was recognized as the 2022 Denver Business Journal Most Admired CEO. So we're incredibly excited about that. I think it's a valid reason for him to be a little delayed today. So like all of you here, we are so excited to listen to today's discoveries, plan for 2023 alongside of our local business professionals, and we're all in this together. Thank you.
Well, let's get started. Our first speaker this morning is a person that needs no introduction, our mayor, Nicholas Gradishar. He is our first mayor in a different form of government. We call it a strong mayor form of government. Please help me welcome Mayor Gradishar.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning to share my thoughts on the economic outlook in Pueblo. Let me begin by thanking Abel Chavez and Councilor Flores for the hard work they did in organizing this event and getting the speakers together and putting the program together. While we have our challenges in the city of Pueblo, growth and increased economic activity is coming to Pueblo. Our future is very bright. We have just endured a worldwide pandemic. And while none of us had been through that sort of thing before, some predicted, that our economy would be devastated. From my perspective, that's not the case. I suspect that different perspectives influence our views on the economy, but Dr. Bailey, when she gets here, will educate us on the facts. The Economic Development Dashboard, which you will hear a lot about today, and which you can see an example of in the program that's been provided, will allow us to document those facts, and track those facts as they change going forward. Although we have very little control over what happens internationally with supply chain issues and inflation, our local economy continues to be strong and resilient. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill and the Inflation Reduction Act will have an almost immediate effect on our local economy. Both of these will afford us unparalleled opportunities to increase our investments in our infrastructure and to prepare for expansion and growth in the city of Pueblo. One of the areas of Pueblo where exciting things are happening is the west side. Historically ignored, this part of Pueblo, north of Thatcher Avenue, south of Highway 50, west of the train tracks, and east of Pueblo Boulevard, will experience significant economic growth and activity in the next 5 years. Pueblo County, and you'll hear more about this from Commissioner Ortiz, is building a new jail in that area, along with the Medal of Honor Boulevard to Pueblo West. NeighborWorks is building a 600-unit residential and commercial development that will include shared equity housing. Private investors are planning apartment buildings and other commercial projects on the west side. And the city of Pueblo will invest in a brand new fire station to serve the west side. Next year, the city will finish the construction of 18th Street so that Chavez Huerta Preparatory Academy and the west side will have direct access to Pueblo Boulevard. All of that growth will take place inside the city of Pueblo and will require massive infrastructure investments. The city is collaborating and working closely with many organizations and entities on the west side to facilitate these projects. I'm proud to share that the city of Pueblo received a $16.8 million RAISE grant from the federal government to improve transportation in the west side area. We will build Sun Mountain Boulevard through the NeighborWorks project and upgrade 70 bus stops to make them ADA compliant. And we'll also design a bridge over the railroad tracks for better access to downtown from the west side. Additionally, the city has committed in that area $6 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds for sanitary sewer improvements and expansions to accommodate this new development. This is money that the county or private developers would ordinarily have to pay if they wanted to put those projects in, but because we have the ARPA funds, they're not required to do that for these projects. One of our oldest industries in the city of Pueblo, the steel mill, continues the construction of the new long rail mill. People came from all over the world to make the steel that built the American West. Today, nearly 50% of the rail used in North America is made here in Pueblo. When the new long rail mill is completed in 2024, I anticipate that market share will increase. The mill will be able to produce rail that's a quarter of a mile long, and that's the kind of rail that the Class 1 railroads are demanding these days. And this is an investment of $700 to $800 million. It's a massive project made possible in part by the Pueblo Urban Renewal Authority. Everaz North America continues to evaluate prospective purchasers as we speak so that they can disaffiliate from the Russian oligarchs that own the parent company. But to date, that affiliation with those oligarchs has not had any effect on the expansion project. One of our newest manufacturers, CS Wind North America, has plans to double their capacity and workforce. This is a direct result of the federal legislation for energy tax credits and Built in America credits. CS Winds has 6 plants around the world where they build wind towers for all of the turbine manufacturers. And they plan to do the same thing in Pueblo, build not just for Vestas, but for all the wind turbine manufacturers. Their plan is to build 100% of the wind towers that they sell in North America right here in Pueblo. You can see that this is what they look at for their capacity. This is what their plans are as they intend maybe to triple their workforce over the next 5 or 6 years, double it in the next 24 months. They have big plans for expansion of that facility. In addition to our strong manufacturing industries, we have 2 rail testing companies, MXV Rail and ENSCO, doing high-level research and testing at Puebloplex and at the test track. Both of these companies have highly educated professional employees who will make significant contributions to our community and our economy. Pueblo, again, will welcome people from all over the world to participate in the activities at both of these companies. You know, in the last 30 years, the population of Colorado, in the last 60 years, the population in Colorado has tripled, and Pueblo's has gone up about 10%. This is going to change. There are numerous reasons why growth will come to Pueblo, but 2 of them are the cost of living in Pueblo, as Councilor Flores said, is lower than other cities, and we have the water that other communities do not have the luxury of having access to. For example, in the last 12 months, Pueblo West, Colorado Springs, the city of Aurora have all entered into water lease agreements with Pueblo Water. In the coming months, as we continue to monitor the drought on the Colorado River, we will have a greater appreciation of how important our water supply will be to our future. Our planning department has received a record number of development inquiries about building market rate, workforce, and low-income housing all around the city. This slide gives you some of the statistics there. And we need it. Last fall, the city commissioned a housing study that showed we'll be 9,500 housing units short in the next 10 years in Pueblo County. I'm very optimistic about Pueblo's future. Cities measure success by sales tax revenue. This chart shows you the sales tax revenue over the last 5 years in the city of Pueblo. You can see that there's substantial increases there. In 2019, we had a net loss of 62 business licenses in the city of Pueblo. In 2020, we had a net gain of 38 business licenses. And in 2021, a net gain of 137 business licenses in the city of Pueblo. The city is committed to making it easier to do business in Pueblo and Pueblo County. We continue to work with Pueblo County, the Regional Building Department, and Pueblo West on the Pueblo Means Business Project. Pueblo Place, shown here, is alive and online. This system allows developers and citizens to get permits, licenses, and to make code enforcement complaints online. Pueblo County and Pueblo West will soon join this system as part of the Pueblo Means Business Project. Our continued economic growth is not without its challenges. The 2 largest, in my judgment, are housing and, as Councilor Flores indicated, workforce. How do we increase our housing supply so that people who want to move to Pueblo have a place to live? We need new apartments and we need new houses. We need to put back into productive use some of those vacant and abandoned properties that have been blighting our neighborhoods. We have developed a plan to put those properties back into productive use, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that in the next several months. How do we ensure that we have a workforce for the new businesses and industries that want to locate in Pueblo, and that we have a workforce for those industries that are already here? How do we make sure that there's a career or job for every young person in the city of Pueblo who wants to stay? It will take all of us to continue to collaborate to answer these questions. I offer the city's commitment to continue to build plans that are dynamic, sustainable, and future-ready. With the broadband expansion and digital equity opportunities coming our way, the city will be able to grow a place where individuals want to live, work, and play. Working together, we can make sure that our economy remains robust and resilient. Thank you.
If you notice on your table, you have a card that looks like this, and toward the end of the presentations, you'll be able to ask. We'll have a question and answer period. When you get economists together, I've already gotten 3 cards, and I think whoever sent these up to me really got the wrong message about it. These are serious questions, but the 3 that I got are kind of economic observations, I guess you would call them. And the first one is, an economist is a person who talks about things you don't understand and makes you believe it's your own fault. The groundhog is like most other economists. It delivers a prediction and then they disappear. And I got a third one here. An economist is a fortune teller with a job. Anyway, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the chairman of the Pueblo County Commissioners, Garen Ortiz, and he'll tell us what's going on at the county. Thank you for being here.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here on a rather cold morning. I just want to say thanks again to Abel and Dennis. Both of them met with me early on to really push the need for this project and have really advanced it going forward. There are many partners, but certainly without these two, I don't know that this project would have come to fruition. I just want to start by saying, we all had the chance to mingle this morning with a pretty diverse set of stakeholders in the room today. We have builders, we have bankers, we have business owners, we certainly have elected leaders and leaders of many organizations in our community that often work together, quite often, to bring major economic projects together. And I think in talking to Councilman Flores yesterday in excitement for today's event, and I'll use his words, I think the business community is starved for this sort of economic data that really much informs what they do on a daily basis. And I think in that same vein, the actions of the private sector certainly impact what we do on a daily basis as elected officials. I think this information is quite timely, primarily because the city and county government are right now in the throes of what I would say is one of our most important jobs, and that's creating our budget. That's how we spend your tax-paying dollars, and we have probably almost $300 million plus in resources that are being allocated for the upcoming fiscal year. So I think this sort of synergy and connectivity and understanding and these measures that we're evaluating really gives a lot of value to what we do and how that benefits the community holistically. I have a couple of projects that I'd like to speak about today. As the mayor had mentioned, there is a lot going on up and down the Pueblo Boulevard area, both east and west of it. A tremendous amount of development occurring with the city's help and NeighborWorks' help to the west. Chavez Huerta is building I believe almost a $30 million school there in that area as well. But to the east, Pueblo County has worked diligently to fund a net zero energy detention facility. I think it's very important not what you do, but how you do it. All indicators show that this will be the first net zero energy jail in the United States. It'll save the county a tremendous amount. Thank you. It'll save the county a tremendous amount of money on an annual basis in terms of deferred maintenance, and it will do a lot when it comes to public safety efforts in the community. The second project that I want to talk about today, and I'll give you a map here and I'll start pointing to that, it's been referred to for 30 plus years as this Joe Martinez Boulevard extension. As you may already know, I think we could not have chosen a more fitting name, being the Home of Heroes, calling that $40 million roadway the Medal of Honor Boulevard extension, as it has been named. As you can see here from this map, this is not just about constructing a new jail or a new roadway. This is really at its heart an economic development project. We are really playing on all of the growth to the west of Pueblo Boulevard, but to the east, you will have a major connector now to help residents get to and from the fastest growing part of Pueblo County, which is Pueblo West. You will have 2 EV charging plazas. You can see that with that CS designation that will anchor both sides of the boulevard. There will be a trail system along the boulevard extension, and there will be economic development on both sides of the boulevard extension. So both to the east, hugging the boulevard, there will be about close to 40 acres of private development there, and all the way to the west, there will be another bubble of economic development in the Pueblo West area directly. And not to just speak about what that economic impact can potentially be to the Pueblo community, but I'd actually like to enumerate that because we've studied this. As many of you know, we've worked on these projects for a very long time. This actually quantifies, and I'll read some of these off to you. It will increase the economic input from the existing employees and businesses. It's expected to yield $3.2 million of economic impact annually. And I think the most impressive statistic here is that it will yield $71 million in taxes to the county and $60 million to the city during the 25-year span of the model. Certainly there are many other metrics that we're considering, but when you aggregate the net private investment, the jobs from the construction, and all of the development that will take place on both sides of this boulevard extension, the impact to the city and county of Pueblo will be transformational and everlasting. This is a look here at what that net zero energy detention facility will look like. It was really important that this does not look like a traditional correctional facility, but that it is appealing to development in that area. One of the other projects that was talked about and mentioned by the mayor, and we've enjoyed some great cooperation from the city of Pueblo, from the Urban Renewal Authority and others to really pull this together, the Metro District in Pueblo West, but Pueblo means business. I know there's a lot of bankers that work to put together many deals in this room, and I think we can all raise our hand and say that business permitting is absolutely key to ensuring that the city and county of Pueblo is able to grow. One of the largest buildings in El Paso County, in talking to some of the county commissioners up there, the largest building is the Amazon Distribution Center, largest building in the state of Colorado. And asking them how they were able to land such a big project, the answer that I received is because we didn't throw a ton of money at them, but they knew that they could get their project done on budget and on time, and that we are a business-friendly city, and we can make this happen for them. That is exactly what the city and county of Pueblo are looking to move towards with this effort. As you can see, the vision for Pueblo Means Business is to develop streamlined, comprehensive processes that unify what are completely siloed activities at this point in time. There are 2 outputs from the Pueblo Means Business effort. The first is a one-stop physical shop. Instead of stopping at all these various entities scattered throughout the city and county of Pueblo, imagine that anywhere in the city and county of Pueblo that you are pulling a building permit and developing a business or a construction project, that you could stop in one central location to resolve and pull all of those permits and resolve all of those business permitting issues. So as you can see here on your screen, there is a going to be a state-of-the-art $4.5 million remodel of the first floor of what's previously known as the Wells Fargo building. And this is a major city and county joint effort. There will also be a one-stop virtual shop to introduce accountability to the permitting processes. So as you can see here to the left, you will be able to track any and all business permitting projects through a single portal, whether your project be in the Pueblo West Metro District, the City of Pueblo, or the County of Pueblo. We have soft go lives currently, but the goal is by the end of next year that this will be universal for the City and County of Pueblo. This is another look at what that space will be. As you can see on the wall, there are a tremendous amount of partners that are going to be required to make this happen. I'm sure this gives maybe a renewed level of confidence to a lot of folks in the room that finance a lot of these construction deals, where every day matters to the vitality of their projects. One of the things I want to wrap up with that the mayor had mentioned is broadband investment. You may have noticed on the ballot here recently that there were two ballot measures, one for the city and one for the County of Pueblo. These ballot measures really stem from a state statute that was recently passed. And essentially all that this does is it really opens up and gives city and county government a lot of flexibility to put our ARPA dollars to use as well. The county has almost $200,000 in reserve for broadband investment, but it gives us full latitude to ensure that we have reliable broadband throughout the city and county of Pueblo. With that said, I'd like to wrap up with another major area of investment that the county has made. Since 2015, we've collected the marijuana excise tax. That excise tax has grown every single year, year over year, and we have certainly spread this investment of excise tax dollars amongst various universities and colleges, but in my opinion, I don't think there's any better investment of these funds than into our two local institutions, which are CSU Pueblo and Pueblo Community College. In speaking with their leadership, these dollars have been a tremendous help when it comes to recruiting and really bridging the gap with some very creative programs, such as the Return to Earn program that President Erjavec has instituted. But putting these dollars to work, the first 50% of excise tax dollars, has been a program that Pueblo County has been very proud to be a part of, and certainly to invest in the higher ed space. Thank you.
I'm honored to be introducing our featured speaker this morning, Dr. Tatiana Bailey. She is a regional economist and the founder of Data-Driven Economic Strategies. Dr. Bailey holds a master's degree in economics and a doctorate in public health, both from the University of Michigan. Since obtaining her doctorate, she has taught micro and macroeconomics as well as health economics and policy at the University of Michigan and Walsh College. Please help me welcome Dr. Tatiana Bailey.
Okay, so because I'm five feet tall on a good day, I'm going to step away from the podium here for a minute. If my husband brought me here, honestly, if he hadn't brought me here, I might not be here. I came from Monument. There were whiteout conditions there, so I apologize. I'm running a little bit late today, but I'm going to go through this information pretty quickly. Anyone who's seen me present before knows this is all related to the dashboard that I think all of you have on your tables inside of the packet that you got. And I have to give Dennis and Abel a lot of credit. I want to say it's probably 2.5 years ago, pre-pandemic, maybe 3 years ago, they first came to me and said, we've seen you present, we like this dashboard, will you have lunch with us? And we started talking, and fast forward to today, and your community now has the same dashboard that I put together in Colorado Springs when I moved there about 8.5 years ago. My predecessor at UCCS had a 40-page economic report let's face it, how many people read 40-page economic reports in this room besides me? Not many. So I shortened it to this dashboard. It's a little different now. I have my own nonprofit now, and yours is called the Economic and Workforce Development Dashboard. So let's jump right in. These are the supporters of the new nonprofit that I started with a few community leaders in Colorado Springs, and you will see that the city of Pueblo is up there now as well. It's called Data-Driven Economic Strategies. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but just to give you context, the mission is to enhance economic opportunities with data-driven strategies that inform community and workforce development initiatives. I think obviously data is really important. So two things we do. One is to develop reports like the one that you now have, and the other one is really to assist in using that data with K-12, with community colleges and so forth, to really hone training. We're not really training people sufficiently for the jobs of today, and I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. So my mantra, and Dennis knows this well, and Abel knows this, what gets measured gets done. So much so that about 1.5 years ago, I started doing, for free, a weekly economic update that maybe a couple of you have seen on Fox 21. And I even make my kids watch it because I tell them, you know, there's so much misinformation out there. You really need to look for sources that are government sourced, if you will, and that, you know, are true information pieces, right? But that doesn't always go well when I ask them to do that. So you get the idea though, right? Okay, so this is what your dashboard looks like. First page and a half or so is usually highlights, where I pull out the data pieces on a monthly or quarterly basis, because we're constantly updating this, and talk about them. So you have some narrative to go with it. Then there's a page that is macroeconomic data. I talk about labor market. I have some zip code information. This is different. Pueblo asked for this, which I think is really smart. We'll go into some detail there. Demographics, real estate, and then the last page are some other miscellaneous things like taxation, vehicle sales, and tourism. So, first page, macroeconomic indicators. And the reason I'm walking you through this is so that when you start looking at this on a monthly basis, you hopefully understand it even a little better. So everyone, of course, is wondering about GDP. Well, gross domestic product, yes, of course, did take a big hit during the pandemic, bounced back nicely in 2021. It's a little hard. We're not quite at the end of 2022, but probably, you know, around that 2% growth rate. The red line is Colorado. You can see for most of the last, you know, really 20 years, Colorado outperforms the nation. We are a high growth nation, and I think a lot of what Pueblo wants to do is get on that gravy train, if you will. Now, if you look for next year, most economists are saying we're going to be at 0% growth, maybe even a little bit negative. We probably are going to hit a recession, is what most people are saying. I do think that Colorado is going to do a little bit better. I do a full hour presentation usually, so this is going to be a little truncated, and I talk more about that there, but I think it's going to make sense to you why I am bullish about Colorado in general. Now, how does this compare to you, to Pueblo? Well, you can look at the U.S. in 2020. Unfortunately, the local metrics lag on this significantly. 2021 is going to come out in December. But the hit to the U.S. metro cities was about 3.5% in 2020. Colorado did a little better, despite having a high hospitality sector at -3%. Look at Colorado Springs. Really didn't get impacted at all, and that's a whole other conversation. But Pueblo over here, you guys might have trouble seeing, -4.1, so got hit harder. University of Michigan, my alma mater, I know I don't look like it, but I'm a fierce Wolverine, and I can tell you that the methodology for this is really good and it's really important. Why? Because about 2/3 of the U.S. economy is consumption, and you can see it's really come down. I've been surprised to see how low it is, as low as the Great Recession. You look at the detail in the surveys, it's all about inflation. And you can see, because of the higher interest rates and the uncertainty and the inflation, the vast majority of survey respondents are saying this is not a good time to buy a home, a large household good, or a vehicle. Now, the other thing that I look at carefully is what about savings rates? So people are still pretty much going out and buying and so forth, but look at savings rate up here on the left. We're now at 3.1%. Pre-pandemic, we were 8-9%. To me, that's a red flag. That tells me that people are using their savings in order to pay their bills, right? Now, delinquency on credit cards, thankfully, it's edged up a little bit, but it's nothing like it was during the other gray bar, the Great Recession there. However, look at what's happening with revolving credit. More people are using revolving credit in order to pay their bills. That I'm watching carefully too, and remember that the debt servicing rate on that is much higher because the prime rate is higher, even significantly more so than in April. Now, job openings, that's another thing you have in your dashboard. Clearly that tells you something about the job market. Look at how it's taken off after the pandemic hit, right? I mean, much higher than even the recovery years after the Great Recession. Now, it did decline a bit, but now it ticked up again. And one of the most difficult aspects of what's going to happen next year is the labor market continues to be tight, and that's all about demographics that I'll talk more about in a second. Now, the other thing I just want to show is look at the civilian participation rate, the percentage of working age people who are participating in the labor force. 2006, 66%, now 62%. Now, why? I'm going to tell you, aging of the population. We have only about 240,000 immigrants legally coming into the United States now. We used to have about 2 million. The laws changed in 2017 under the previous administration. And years ago, people just didn't have as many kids. I'm an anomaly. I'm a Latina who had 5 kids, right? But the fertility rate is only about replacement level now, about 2. Now, unemployment rates. Obviously important for you to have as well on a monthly basis. Just today, later today, these are going to be updated. I tried to get them yesterday. But anyway, you can see US at 3.3%. Most economists consider the normal rate of unemployment to be about 4.5%. So we got a long way to go, right? And then look at Colorado, El Paso County, Pueblo, 5.1%. So clearly there's room for improvement there. Now, what about this inflation rate? Well, you can track that also on your monthly dashboard. 7.7%, better than the 8.2% the year before. So there's speculation that it's leveling off. So that's hopefully good news. 1 month doesn't make a trend, but at least most components are not increasing as much. Now, another thing I added for you is the cost of living index for Pueblo. 100 is the benchmark, if you will, the average across the US. Pueblo is at 93.3. So that's good news. Even though prices have gone up here as well, it's not as much as other parts. Colorado Springs is at 104. When I moved there, it was at 95. The thing that's really troubling from my perspective with inflation is that A, it's broad-based, it's across most goods, and the largest increases are the typical household budget items, if you will. Food, gasoline, transportation, shelter, cars, and so forth. So much so now that real earnings, inflation-adjusted earnings, are actually down in the US by 2.8%. So what does the Fed have to do? They have to raise interest rates, right? I actually had a piece yesterday saying I think that the Fed should not be as aggressive right now. We have too many headwinds. I think they should pause for a little bit. But that's sort of contrarian to most economists. But you can see the forecasts for 2023, Office of State Planning and Budgeting, Wells Fargo, and so forth. They're saying a terminal rate for the Fed funds rate of around 5 or 5.25. That's actually pretty high. But typically that's what's done. It's a blunt instrument, but it's what's done to quell inflation. Now, what about the labor market? Well, I think this is really important, and this is something that Abel and Patty and others really latched onto, as well as my own community. And now I'm also working with Aurora and the city of Miami. Top 10 job openings. It's amazing to me how many communities don't even look at this data, but it's available. This tells you what the titles are, what the job posting numbers are, how many postings, what the median salary is in Pueblo, okay, and then the risk of automation. That's really important data to have. And with Patty and Abel and a few others, I can dig deeper into this. I can give you the top 50. I can tell you how long it takes to get that certification or that degree, which, by the way, a lot of them are like 6 or 9 month certifications, great for community colleges. I can tell you what the top skills are that are being demanded, top certifications, and so forth. And I actually give Colorado Springs and Pueblo and Aurora and the city of Miami kudos for actually paying attention to this, because it's amazing to me, again, how many communities don't know this information. Now, in September, the total job openings in Pueblo, about 4,300. Total unemployed, that's only people who have been looking in the last 4 weeks. That's how the BLS counts unemployment, 4,000. So that means that you have about 0.9 workers available for each open position. US right now is at about 0.5, and so is Colorado and Colorado Springs. So you all still have a fairly tight labor market, but not nearly as tight as the rest of the state. I'm not going to show this right now, but if you have the slides and you go back to this, Community College of Aurora, the president there, used the data I gave him to jettison, completely get rid of 27 programs at Aurora Community College, and used the funds from that to bolster some other programs that the data supported are high demand occupations. Now, also in your dashboard, you can see, going back to 2016, in terms of employment, what are the top sectors? What are the top industries? You can see there isn't a tremendous amount of growth. Colorado Springs, of course, which I track as well, there are at least 3 or 4 of these industries that there's a solid upward trend. Now, if you do look back to the data on the bottom right and also in your dashboard, you can see the sectors that are growing the most and by how much, looking back to 2016. I also calculated, and I double-checked this with the state demographer's office, the dotted line tells you what are you working towards? How many jobs do you need for your population size and your age demographic in order to match that population growth? How many jobs do you need? Well, it's about 455. And on average, over the last 20 years, Pueblo's been generating about 385. Then this is also a chart that shows you what are the top sectors in terms of money, not employment, but in terms of the contribution to gross metropolitan product, which is just like GDP, but for a city. And then wages. This is really important, and I can tell you this is something that Colorado Springs really struggles with too. Pueblo wages are 29.8% lower than the US on average, 33% lower than Colorado, and about 16% lower than El Paso County. And El Paso County is lower than the US. Why? Well, that's another presentation that I talk about a lot in Colorado Springs. But you can see there, that's an issue, right? And it's usually a legacy of not having the industries that are high demand occupations, but also being perceived to be a lower cost region. So the wages are lower and so forth. Now, another thing, what about the percentage of people who are at or below the poverty line in Pueblo? Well, it's higher than the US. The US in 2021 was 12.8%, Pueblo County 16.3%. So have a ways to go there. And by the way, El Paso County is lower than the US in that metric. Now, we all know that even having a $13.50 minimum wage in Colorado, or in Colorado as a whole, isn't really a livable wage, right? Unfortunately. What is a livable wage? Well, MIT Living Wage Calculator breaks this down by county. It's actually really good data. Let's do an example of a household with 2 adults, 1 working and 2 kids. That one individual needs to make about $74,000, and that's just to make shelter payments, transportation payments, maybe childcare, and so forth. And then on page 5 of your dashboard, this is the zip code information that I believe one of your county commissioners asked for, city council member, and it's very telling. Look at, for instance, the difference between zip code 81004 and 007. Look at over to the right. I tried to bold them there. 76% versus 98% in terms of the percentage of people with a high school diploma. Those are some significant differences in terms of educational attainment. And then you can see similar differences in terms of the percentage of people who have a bachelor's degree. Earnings, also very problematic from a regional perspective. 007 has median earnings that are 62% higher than 004. It's a pretty significant difference. And then just for context, it's obviously not just Pueblo. I did a study back in 2020 at the beginning of the year, and you can look it up if you want, it's in the Gazette. The top 1% of the US had 31% of the total wealth in the US, whereas the bottom 50% had 3% of the wealth. And you can kind of see that in this graph here as well. So that's clearly an issue that is not sustainable if you ask pretty much any economist. And then we have a page on demographics. This shows population by age. So you can compare Pueblo County to the US. You can see that the median age in 2021 in Pueblo was 40, and in the US it was 38.8. But I also look a lot by age, right? Look at the prime working ages, 25 to 39. The US has a higher proportion, Pueblo has less, and same thing for 40 to 54. So you're gonna have issues, as you do already, and most regions do, in terms of working age individuals. And then if we look at the projections from the State Demographer's Office going out to 2040, you can see that 65 plus, just like the US, has the largest rate of increase. You do have some decent increase in 25 to 49, so by all means, let's hold on to those individuals here. But you can see the other ones are either flat or even declining, including children, 0 to 17. And then the estimates between now and 2050 is for Pueblo County to go from 169,000 to almost 195,000. That's a 15% growth rate during in that time span, whereas Colorado is double that at 30%. Now, all of this is really interesting because Colorado is a high growth state. The line shows you US population growth rates, and the bars are Colorado. So you can see Colorado's been outperforming the US for years. People like me, probably a lot of you in the room who have moved here, a lot of young people who establish homes here and so forth. So the declines that I'm talking about are really across everywhere right now. They're just more acute in areas that are not growing as much economically. And then I think this is an important thing to remember too. Colorado in particular is going to be even more diverse if we look at between now and 2050 in all age groups. Now, if you think about access to higher education and how much it costs, if you think about K-12 and all of the services that are needed for kids in terms of learning, sometimes English as a second language and so forth, we really need to fund our future workforce. And then here's just a map of Colorado so you can see which areas are growing, and the blue are the ones that are actually declining in population. Pueblo's modest growth, so that's good. And then this shows you graphically the percentage of people in Pueblo, Colorado, and US that have a bachelor's degree or higher. Pueblo is lower, the blue. The blue is Pueblo County, so 26% versus US at 35. And then, just like Colorado Springs, Pueblo actually has more people with some college or associate's degree. I know especially in Colorado Springs, a lot of that is the military, but I consider that an opportunity. Again, because a lot of the high demand occupations don't necessarily require a 4-year degree anymore. Student loans, I get asked a lot about this, just really briefly. It's approaching $2 million, second only to mortgage debt, and now more than credit card debt. The average student loan is $37,000, so when you think about the barriers to a qualified workforce moving forward, and for Black borrowers, that average is $55,000. But unfortunately, Only about 50% of the students who now enter a four-year university actually complete by the end of their 6th year. And after that, it's not very likely. So you got a lot of kids with debt, but no degree. And then wrapping up here, I have just a couple more sections. Real estate, we all know what's happened with real estate over the last 2.5 years, particularly the last year. Upward trend in terms of home sales in Pueblo. You can see that Pueblo's September new and existing median home price was $295,000. All over the United States, prices have moderated some, no crash, but have moderated. Compared to the US, Pueblo is still less expensive. Look at where the Springs and Denver are in terms of median home prices. Boulder is about $800,000, by the way. The price trajectory, even here though, has been quite positive. Look at this. This is going back to 2018. You can see on the right, prices have begun to moderate, including also in Colorado Springs. But if still, the baseline prices are so much higher than they were now pre-pandemic. The average home prices are up 44.5% from September of 2019 to September of 2022 in Pueblo. This is a really important metric that is also in your dashboard. It's called the Housing Opportunity Index. It tells you the percentage of homes sold in your region that are affordable to the households that earn the median income. Okay, so in Pueblo you can see it's at 45.5%, so almost half. But look at what it was in 2012, 94%. Colorado Springs, pre-pandemic, was 71%, and we're down to 24.9%. So it tells you something about what's happened with housing, but particularly in Colorado. Permits, National Association of Realtors has estimated that we have a shortage of about 6.5 million homes. I believe the mayor said something about this earlier. We just do not have, we stopped building enough homes after the Great Recession. So a lot of regions are trying to make that up, and that's exacerbating the problem. It's also part of the reason I don't think we're going to see any kind of housing crash. We may see moderation or slight declines in prices, but I don't think we're going to see 20-point declines like we did during the Great Recession. And then I do have a little bit here on commercial real estate. You can see it looks like, for instance, retail, yes, vacancy rates have gone up. But look at your axis here. The top one is 7%. I can tell you that the office vacancy rate across the United States right now is about 18%. So why would Pueblo and even Colorado Springs have lower vacancy rates? Because they never had enough product to begin with. That's the difference. And then the last page just shows some miscellaneous but important metrics. And that includes things like the city gross sales tax receipts. You can see they held up during the recession and up year over year 12.5%. The lodger's tax, not quite as high as it was last year, and you can see it's seasonal, which is to be expected. I also have include their vehicle sales, just because that's a good indicator also of whether people are out and buying. And then this is the half-cent sales tax for the Economic Development Fund. I did amalgamate it from 2014 to 2021. It's about 70 million that Pueblo has in economic development dollars, and the bar to the right shows the year-to-date so far. And then tourism spending, yes, it took a hit in 2020, but it's overall doing quite well, with 267 million in 2021 and 2,600 direct employment in tourism. And this is according to the Colorado Tourism Office. And one thing I want to mention before I close, in terms of tourism, I'm now working just in the early stages of potentially doing something with the North Shore Marina with an investor friend of mine who is based in Colorado Springs. By the way, he's the investor. I'm just helping. I'm not an investor in it. But some interesting things in terms of tourism that could be happening with that as well. And then you can get the weekly updates I do and such on LinkedIn, but also next week, we're all of 4 weeks old, but next week our website will also be up, ddestrategies.org. So thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm glad I made it. And yeah, I think we'll do a little Q&A later.
I'd like to introduce the president of Pueblo Community College, Dr. Patty Erjavec, to say a few words.
Aren't we fortunate in Pueblo to have this wonderful tool available to us, a fluent tool that will give us the data and the information for us to go forward? And I think that all of you know that as your community college, our mantra is, we never say no. And so we are taking this data very, very seriously. And I just wanted to highlight, I bet all of you, as you were sitting here listening to Dr. Bailey, thought, gee, that piece of data is important for me. Well, there's data in here that is definitely important for higher ed. I've heard a couple of times already the pressure to produce more of a talent pipeline. And so the things that we really are paying attention to, as Dr. Bailey said, is what are the basic skills gap in which one of the professions, and what do we need to do to be able to take our resources and funnel them to them. You know, in years past, I've even said it myself, got up on a stage and said, Pueblo Community College offers over 75 programs. And everyone claps. That's a sign that we're successful. And now we're beginning to wonder, do we really need 75 programs when a third of those programs may not produce a degree or certificate that would yield a livable wage? Should we not take those resources and really invest in our nursing and allied health programs? Should we take those resources and really invest in our advanced manufacturing areas or the construction area? And actually, the answer is absolutely. Those are painful decisions to make, especially in a community like ours that's steeped in history and tradition. And I'll give you an example. I don't think it's a secret that we recently closed our culinary arts program. Everybody in Pueblo loved coming to PCC and having our students serve them and enjoy a meal. Those individuals, when they left here, they left with debt, and they're not able to get employment with a livable wage. We're not doing ourselves any favors if we continue down that trajectory. So we do look at this information. We do look at what the livable wage is. We do look at what the degree or certificate will yield. And I know that this is going to be a funny statement coming from a college president, but I'm wondering, does everybody really need a degree, a 4-credit degree? Or should we be more flexible, more nimble? Should we be offering non-credit opportunities to gain the competencies that many of you need right now, today? The hope is that if we do change that opportunity and people can come in and get the skills, that we will build a relationship with those individuals, and then at some point in time they will come back to us to complete that degree or certificate, because we will have created a pathway where they will not have to start over again. And so it is important that we look at this data, and we're very fortunate that it's fluent and that we can, again, move forward. Higher ed needs to be much more nimble than it's been in the past. And we cannot say, just because the last 75 years we had a culinary arts program, we're going to stay with a culinary arts program. What we need to be able to say is that this community needs nurses, they need rad techs, they need respiratory care, they need construction workers right now today so that they are available to build the houses that we need. So we take a look at this and really are trying to align our programs with where the needs are in the state. The information that is presented about the zip codes and the difference between our white citizens and our minority citizens is extremely important, because as we see that we have a declining population, We need to be able to take and narrow that gap and take those minority citizens and get them the education that they need to get themselves out of poverty, to get a livable wage, and to be able to actively contribute in this community so that we can continue to grow and be prosperous. So that information is really, really important, and that is something that we look at every day also. So not only will we be able to increase the number of degrees and certificates or competencies, but we'll be able to take the human resources that we have and make the best of them. So it's really important that, again, that we look at this data and that we are responding in the proper areas. We have to be flexible, we have to be deliberate, and we have to be mindful that each citizen in this city has unique needs. And when we talk about the cost of education, you know, I know many of us in higher ed are like, we just don't get it. We have all this financial aid available, and we have all these scholarships. Why aren't the students just flocking at our doors and coming and enrolling? Well, the real question is, with the amount of poverty that we have here, even if they have a full ride, if you will, where are they going to get the money to pay for daycare? Where are they going to get the money to pay for the housing or the transportation? And so that, again, is the balance that we have to look at, is how can we help these individuals move forward in a way that it's not a matter of just surviving, but they'll be able to thrive. So again, Tatiana, you know I'm your biggest fan because all of the information that you've given us, whether it relates directly to higher ed or to the community as a whole, whether it's the housing market, the cost of housing, the cost of consumable goods, all of this plays into the equation of why do not more people move forward and get an education. So again, our mantra here at PCC is we never say no. We have a very robust Pueblo Corporate College that does all things customized training, not just for advanced manufacturing, but we also are available for any sort of customer service training, leadership training, construction training, anything that you may need. We also are very, very deliberate in our relationships with K-12. We also have a very robust CE program. I'm so proud of this program because we've been able to partner with our high schools and also, again, identify why aren't these children taking advantage of concurrent enrollment? Why aren't their families taking advantage of it? Well, I have some pretty smart people here at PCC that came to me and said they may get their tuition, but they have no money for books, they have no money for the supplies, they have no money for transportation to get here. And so we have gone to Pueblo County, to the commissioners, and said, if we really want to move this particular group of students forward, we need some help. And so this year, the county commissioners were, again, very generous and gave us money so that we can actually bus students here to the college so that they can get that college experience, and hopefully they will continue to matriculate here, get that degree or certificate, and then become your valuable employees. So we have that. We have opportunities for bachelor's degrees. We now have 7 bachelors of applied science and a bachelor's of nursing. And why is that important, and why would community colleges want to venture into that road? Well, we have that relationship with the student. They've received their associates. They've now gone into, primarily these are in the healthcare sector. They can go to work, and then these online programs can get them the degree completion that they need, so that our healthcare partners that now have not only the highly skilled nurses and rad techs and respiratory care, but they also have future managers and leaders for their businesses. So the other thing that we're really working hard on are apprenticeships. We've been able to establish several. We talked about Everaz. Everaz and Pueblo Community College have a really great relationship with apprenticeships. We've begun apprenticeships in the healthcare arena, in the cybersecurity and computer information. So again, we never say no. We get busy, and if we don't have the skills, we find the skills so that we are available to you. And I think that's the message that I want to leave you with. We look at the data, we see what resources we need, and even though we're not quite where we need to be yet, we are working very hard with you shoulder to shoulder to make sure that we have that highly skilled, highly educated workforce. We know that's terribly important if our community is to thrive, if our community is going to grow, to be safe and healthy. We need a highly educated workforce, and we're here, and the data really drives the decisions that we make. So again, we have a wonderful tool. This is my perspective as an educator, but I bet every one of you already have ideas on how you can take this data and use it to help strengthen your own particular industry. So Abel and Dennis, thank you for bringing us all together. Tatiana, thank you for lending us your expertise as we go forward, and thank you for all of you to be here. If this wasn't important, you wouldn't be here on such a snowy day. I can see Pueblo has a bright future if we continue to work together. Thank you.
We have one last speaker before a Q&A, and I'd like to invite Shannon Baker. She's the mission coordinator with Pueblo Economic Development Corporation. Welcome.
Make sure I know what I'm doing. Okay. Thank you and good morning. I am really pleased and excited to be here and take this opportunity to tell you about a little project that PEDCO has been working on. So my name is Shannon Baker, and I am PEDCO's mission coordinator, which means, I coordinate PEDCO's mission, which is to attract, retain, and expand primary jobs for Pueblo County. And what you may ask is a primary job? Well, there's a little more technicality to it than this, but basically a primary job is full-time in the private sector where the goods or services that are consumed go outside of Pueblo County, which brings money into Pueblo and cycles it into the local economy. So attract, retain, and expand primary jobs. Obviously the pandemic changed a lot of things and the effects continue to reverberate, but 2022 started off looking pretty good, like a pretty hopeful year. And then the war in Ukraine, spiking gas prices and energy costs, uncertainty nationwide for workforce shortages and supply chain issues, and not surprisingly, a lot of companies put their expansion and relocation plans on hold. So PEDCO put a stronger focus on the companies that are here, the backbone of our economy. So as part of my mission coordinator role, I have had the stupendous honor of visiting Pueblo's manufacturers and distributors and having conversations with plant managers and other leadership. And every time I leave, I am a little more in awe of all that is made in Pueblo. Now, in these visits, the conversation usually begins and ends with workforce, how the landscape is changing, how companies are pivoting, and how PEDCO can help. So I am here to tell you that it is really impressive, all of the things that are made and maneuvered right here in Pueblo, and all of the jobs that are associated with that. Good jobs, jobs where you could raise a family, jobs that give you a work-life balance, that invest in you, and want to see your skills grow. And they are all begging for qualified employees, which basically means that you have the desire to succeed and the right attitude. And then chances are pretty good that PCC has a program lined up to lead you to your success. So these jobs absolutely exist in Pueblo. And they are, So MadeInPuebloCo.com was created in 2019 as a push to get students and the community interested in the jobs and opportunities that exist for them in local manufacturers. It was a push from the Southern Colorado Manufacturing Group, PEDCO, and Digital Heart Media, and shout out to Nikki Hart, who has designed and supports the website. She's awesome. It was launched with 9 companies opening their doors for tours and inviting schools and the community to come and visit. And it was going really well. getting some good traction, and then COVID, and that nixed that idea for a little while. And then there was the rebound period when we were all like, I don't know, what do you think we should do? But oh, how we grew and learned and took on challenges and made successes and strides. And I believe that the time is again ripe for Pueblo. So I've been able to visit with over 30 of Pueblo's primary employers, and they're all really excited about getting young people interested in the opportunities that exist. And I've met with teachers who said that their students would be really interested in these opportunities if they knew about them. So this is Made in Pueblo. It's evolving. All of the companies are creating a profile, which includes, this is awkward, some photos, information about tours and whether they're allowed, link to view open jobs, contact information, a little bit about the company, what they do, and their culture, an inclusive sampling of positions at the company. So this is intended to give a really nice swath of the different types of jobs that exist, because you would be surprised at the different types of talents and skills that a company employs. An explanation of benefits, and it would be really cool if this evolved to paint a picture for someone that shows what their life could be like, where they could get themselves if they stayed with a company for 5 years. It shows the opportunities for advancement, the employment requirements like drug testing and background checks. And then we can use all of this information to really build out and strengthen the pathways that are going to fill our pipeline. Now, many companies have also agreed to offer a tour, and this is a great opportunity to engage young talent. And requests can be submitted through the website and coordinated through PEDCO. And we'll work with the instructors and the companies to get things set up if they're interested in a tour. So I also want to thank everybody who presented today. I'm always impressed with the leadership here. Thank you to Dennis and to Abel for organizing.
We already have about 5 or 6 questions here. I'd like to ask Dr. Bailey to come up and answer a few of these. There are questions here that maybe our government officials that are here might be able to answer, but this first one is definitely an economic. The first question is, why are the feds not using money supply when raising rates? Banks are not buying Fed funds. Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
Not really. I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think I know where it's going. So when the Fed, makes the decision to raise interest rates, obviously it's to make it harder for people to buy things, right? Because there's too much demand. As they say, too much demand chasing too few goods. And that was exacerbated by COVID because we had the supply chain issues, and then somebody else mentioned, Ukraine and grain, fertilizer, not to mention petroleum products. So that's honestly, in my career, I've never found it as difficult as it is right now to try and prognosticate what's going to happen in 2023. Now, what else could the Fed do? As I briefly mentioned, it's a blunt instrument. It's not perfect. I had my doubts, honestly, to begin with, on whether raising those interest rates was really going to make that much difference. Because is that going to free up the ports? No, not really, right? Is it going to make it any easier for people to buy a home? No, but to be fair, the demand for homes was off the charts, and not only first-time home buyers, but a lot of second home buyers, especially in the state of Colorado. That kind of threw a monkey wrench into a lot of locations as well, particularly mountain communities. So it's kind of all we have. We don't really have any other choice but to raise these interest rates. Now, what I will say is, look at all the headwinds we still have. We had the CPI and the PPI, which is a producer price index, both moderate, I mean, really early, but they both moderated this past month. So would it be so bad if we held things where they are right now? Because on a dime, if inflation goes up again, almost overnight, the Federal Reserve can say, we need to raise interest rates again. So, I'm a little bit concerned about too much medicine, if you will, at this point with as many headwinds as we have in 2023. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. I think it did. Here's a question that I think I might be able to answer. Will the dashboard become sustainable without using the people's tax money? And I guess I wasn't clear enough initially, but the city took on the task of starting the process for the next 2 years. So we'll begin transferring the baton over to the business community. If there's value in it, the business community and the entire community will have to support it continuing it into the 3rd year. So it's not one of these ongoing expenses that will go on forever, but only for 2 years. And yes, we're hoping that it will sustain itself in engaging the business community.
I will just add to that in Colorado Springs, the entity went from 5 sponsors to 60 in about a year and a half because people saw the value of the dashboard, and I think that's part of the reason that Dennis and Abel brought me in, and I think it's completely doable because it's not a very heavy lift if you're sharing that amongst 30, 40, 50 organizations.
The next question, I may be able to touch on this. What is Pueblo County doing to support the rise of the gig workers and remote workers in our economy? It's an idea that's come up for discussion at PETCO meetings about what they're really saying here is how do we incentivize individuals that live outside of Pueblo, outside of Colorado, that where we could provide an incentive for them to come live in Pueblo and do their job remotely. There's millions of people that are doing that right now. And it's under discussion, it probably will remain on our agenda. I do happen to serve on PETCO, so it'll be a topic that we'll bring up because I think that's another way of bringing people into Pueblo, and it's an ideal place for young people, especially with the price of housing. So we'll be looking at that in the future. Next question. Pueblo needs to attract white-collar jobs versus blue-collar jobs. What's being done in this area outside of the health and education? I'm not sure I could answer this.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that even in the 8.5 years that I have lived in the Colorado Springs area, there's been tremendous growth in professional and technical, which are really the white-collar jobs. But of course, other industries like healthcare, like education, and so forth, manufacturing also have white-collar jobs. So honestly, a lot of the reason that I think Colorado Springs has done as well as it has over the last 7-8 years in particular is because it's diversified its economy. It is pretty hard to be a service-based economy with, a predominance of blue-collar or service-based jobs that are not at livable wages. It's difficult. I mean, and it's a circular thing, right, Patty? If you have people at middle or lower income, then their kids find it harder to get higher education, and then you have a next generation. And then now we're in a situation where companies are going, like Petco was saying, companies are trying to relocate or expand somewhere, and the first question they ask anywhere is, what does your workforce pipeline look like? So it's a vicious circle. But I can also tell you, in Colorado Springs, it's been a virtuous cycle. So if you can get some things right, like education and training that's accessible and affordable, like attracting some companies or helping grow existing companies that are from different sectors, particularly with livable wages, I think there's kind of a pivot point. Colorado Springs has hit that. I really think so. And part of the reason I'm excited to work with Pueblo is not that different than Colorado Springs when I first moved there. There's a lot of potential here.
Thank you. Next question. How do we encourage people to live in the city median earnings in the city is low because doctors, nurses, police, managers, CSU professors, test center live outside of Pueblo. There's been a drive in the community. All of you have either sons or daughters or nieces and nephews that don't really want to own a house. They want to live in the center of a community without having the hassle of having to take care of the yard or paint or whatever. And we have several projects going on right now in the center of our city that is encouraging young people and all people to come live within the core of the community. And there's two reasons for that. One is the infrastructure is already there, so the cost is lower for people to live downtown. And then secondly, I lost my train of thought there. Not only it lowers the cost of the price of a home if you use the existing infrastructure, but it also helps the retail businesses in the area. They have to, if we have a project called Fuel and Iron right now we're developing 28 units, they'll be able to utilize all of the restaurants around them, and so we hope that that'll increase sales tax for all the businesses in the core of the city. So those are the two factors in that, and I think that. But as far as dictating to people where they can live, and it is, I don't know whether it's a problem, but you have the same situation. There's probably people that live in Pueblo, and I know there is, that work in Colorado Springs. It's just one of those things in a free society, people can live where they want to, and I wish there was a easy answer.
I'll tell you, I think that there's also a pivot point there as well, because again, I hate to keep going back to Colorado Springs, but I haven't lived here that long, 8.5 years. There was one apartment building downtown that was not really very desirable. I didn't know anybody who lived there, and the amount, have any of you been to downtown Colorado Springs? And then of course the Interquest area and so forth, and like you're saying, once it's a momentum thing. Interquest even, it had some activity, and then some multifamily went up, and then you had some more restaurants come in, and then you had, Shields come in. All these different things. So it's a matter of getting started and incentivizing. And you're right, it's also often less expensive initially.
Yeah, this next question touches on the same subject too. Citizens of Pueblo County pay a half-cent tax, but no requirement to live in the city. Let's use money to improve the city to encourage people to live in the city. Again, we can't tell people, where they can live, and our half-cent sales tax does not have any kind of power, I guess, to tell people that where they can live. And as far as using the money outside, there's always a misconception of the half-cent sales tax. It is a ballot issue that was passed by the citizens, and it defines what can be done with the half-cent sales tax, and it's really to attract primary jobs in general. We've made a few exceptions during the pandemic, but we cannot use the money for improvements outside of what the voters dictated in that ballot issue. And but this question comes up all the time with people wanting to utilize that money for other things, and it can't be done. I think that if we did that, the citizens probably would vote the half-cent sales tax down. It's really been effective in narrowing and focusing on what we're doing right now, and it's just, we do have other means of being able to finance the beautification of Pueblo, and we continue to look at methods to do that. The last question I have here, it says, Pueblo City and County and Economic Forum, 2 questions. What is the real total cost for Pueblo businesses who are dealing with the aggressive homeless population, such as security, staff, theft? And that's a question in itself right there. And it's not just a Pueblo problem. The homelessness problem is probably one of the most frustrating things that the city and city council and the mayor have to deal with. And we are talking about this seriously as far as the homeless camps, and also trying to bring together all the services that are available. Obviously, they have to want these services, and there's a group of population of homeless people that don't want to be bothered at all. But we're trying to deal with this. In fact, one of our city councilors did have an idea on businesses being able to contact outside the police department assistance through 2 different phone numbers, 211 and 988, in which if they see someone that's bothering, a business, or and they're in a either medical or mental, problem, that we might be able to have the business call these 2 hotlines and maybe get assistance there. But I don't know whether you could put a cost. I don't know if you've ever done anything as far as what the homeless cost the community.
It's huge, and part of the reason I show that wealth inequality, I put it in every presentation, is because it is a U.S. problem, and it's very complex, and it's tied to generational poverty, it's tied to substance abuse, mental illness, all sorts of different things. One thing I will say, though, is there's been a noticeable difference in the homeless population in downtown Colorado Springs, and a lot of it has to do with the investment, both public and private, for Springs Rescue Mission. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. There are many good organizations, Catholic Social Services and so forth, but Springs Rescue Mission is a campus, and it's a place where not only are homeless people housed, and it's a little bit removed from the inner city, but they also can get mental health counseling, they can get physical health, they can get workforce, job placement, assistance with workforce training. And really, all the studies have shown that if you really want to attack this problem, you need that. It's kind of like what you said, Patty, in terms of getting kids to come to community college, wraparound services. It's not a quick fix, but it's kind of the only fix that has been proven to work.
And the second question, it touches on the same topic. What is the 2023 plan to mitigate the economic impact due to the Pueblo County homelessness? And it's just something that we're going to have to deal with community-wise, not just the county, but there's so many facets to it.
Yeah, I just want to end on a positive note. Economists always talk about comparative advantage. Comparative advantage is looking at a company, a region, a country, and just saying, what are you good at? What can you possibly do that's a little bit better than another region? Maybe you do it less expensively. Maybe you have the correct workforce. Maybe it's all of the above. Maybe you have the natural resources. I stick to that. Part of the reason I put a lot of emphasis on what are your top industries in terms of employment, in terms of contribution to your gross metropolitan product, is because right there you can see what do you have even. And then you kind of step back and you go and you say, well, what are the training programs that, are we training people for those jobs? The other thing you can look at is, do we have the natural resources? Do we have the water, right? Is it a high growth industry? Go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, look it up. It's actually really easy to see if it's a high growth industry, like certain forms of manufacturing, like alternative energy and so forth. And then drive it. Drive it, drive it, drive it. You can't do 20 million different things. And as much as it is great to attract new businesses, usually only about 10% of new jobs in a given region come from outside. It's mostly figuring out what you're good at within your own community and really focusing your efforts on that from the holistic perspective of training, of incentives, of everything. So that's just the positive thing that an economist can tell you for today.
I think that's the extent of the questions. I have one more thing to do real quick here, and I left it on the... I wanted to thank these 2 gentlemen right here. All of you, when you like to see a city council meeting, as painful as they are, these are the 2 gentlemen that have taken Scott Richards' place, and they work for PCC, but they do all of the television work that you see on the government channel 17. And this is Lee Truan. He's a media production coordinator, and his assistant, Ryan Sandoval. I wanted to thank the 2 of you personally. I think that concludes it. I appreciate all of you attending. We hope that this is going to become an annual event. And thank you for taking your morning today. And all of you, have a good day.